Hello and welcome back to BHookedCrochet.com. I'm your host Brittany, and in this video I'm going to demonstrate how to crochet the mason jar cozy. This is a free pattern that's available at BHookedCrochet.com, and you can find the link to that pattern in the description below. To complete one cozy, you're going to need 65 yards of Creme de la Creme cotton yarn by Red Heart Yarns, a size 5mm crochet hook, a size 4.5mm crochet hook, a darning needle, and a pair of scissors. This pattern begins using the magic ring to start working in the round. We'll slow it down in this tutorial for those who may be unfamiliar, and for those who are familiar with how to do the magic ring, go ahead and create your magic ring with 10 double crochets. What you want to do to create the magic ring is take the tail end of your yarn and put it in between your second and third fingers, and then just wrap it around your first two fingers 2 times. Now what I'm doing back here is I'm holding on to the working yarn in between my pinky and my ring finger, and you want to slide your hook under both of those loops, grab that back loop, and you just simply want to pull it underneath that first loop, and then grab your working yarn, so yarn over and pull through to lock the magic ring in place. Now since we're working with double crochets, we need to make 3 chains. And now let's go ahead and gather up our hands here so that we're holding it in a more comfortable position. So just grab on, and you can remove your fingers from that ring. And then there, I just insert my other fingers back in there. So this chaining of 3 is going to count as 1 double crochet, and we need to have a total of 10. So go ahead and make 9 double crochets into your magic ring. Okay, and once you have a total of 10 double crochet into your magic ring, you just want to pull on that tail, that strand, to close up the magic ring. And now we need to join, to finish off this round, we need to join with a slip stitch to the 3rd chain. So you can kind of see the first chain right here, there's the second, and the 3rd is right there. We just want to insert our hook into that chain, grab your working yarn, pull it through the chain and through the loop on your hook, and that finishes off round 1. To begin round 2, we just need to make 3 chains. This is going to count as a double crochet, and we're going to put 2 double crochets into the first stitch and in every stitch around until we've reached this last little bit right here. This stitch is from the slip stitch from our previous round. We'll just put 1 double crochet into that stitch to pair it up with this chain 3, and we'll end up with a total of 20 double crochets at the end of this round. As I mentioned before, we just want to make one double crochet into our very last stitch here, the one that's right next to our chain 3. And that's simply because the chain 3 is counting as a double crochet that's going to pair up with this one. So it's essentially as if they were coming out of the same stitch. So from here we just want to slip stitch into the 3rd chain, just like we did in round 1, to finish off round number 2. Round 3 we're going to be increasing again. We want to start off with chaining 3. That's going to count as 1 double crochet. And we want to make 2 double crochets into the 1st stitch right here. And then 1 double crochet into the next stitch. Two double crochets into the next stitch. And by alternating this way, we're going to increase another round and we'll keep our piece a flat circle in doing so. At the end of round 3, we should have a total of 30 double crochets. Once you've reached the end of round 3, you'll see something that looks like this. I've got my last stitch here, which needs to have 2 double crochets. Now that's how you know that you've done things properly, if your last stitch has 2 double crochets. But a lot of times people get confused by this extra little stitch or V right here. And technically we're not counting this as a stitch that needs a double crochet because we counted the chain 3 as a double crochet. And so this V here has a stitch in it, which is the chain 3. So you just want to make your last 2 double crochets into that last stitch. And in doing so, you should have a total of 30 double crochets, counting that chain 3. So then we just want to join with the slip stitch to that 3rd chain, and that will finish off round 3. Round 4 is going to be our final round of increasing, and we're going to be working in half double crochet stitches now instead of the double crochet. So because of this, we're going to start off by chaining 2, and that's going to count as 1 half double crochet. Now we need to make 1 half double crochet into the very first stitch, and then we'll make 2 half double crochets into the next stitch, and now we'll make 1 half double crochet into each of the next 2 stitches, and then 2 half double crochets into the next. And this is how we're going to increase for round 4 so that our work stays a flat circle. So we just want to repeat this all the way around, making 2 half double crochets into the same stitch, and then a half double crochet into each of the next 2, and just repeating that until we've reached the end. And at the end we should have a total of 40 stitches. just like the end of round 3, we'll end up making 2 half double crochets into the last stitch here. Again, this little V or that stitch is not actually a stitch at the end of the round. It's actually the first stitch of this round, because remember we made our chaining of 2. We said that counted as a half double crochet. So we don't want to put any extra stitches into that, what looks to be the last stitch. Now to finish off the round, we just want to locate that second chain and join with a slip stitch to finish things off. Now that finishes up round 4 and the final increasing round for this pattern. To begin round 5, we're going to work in double crochet again, so we want to make 3 chains. And we're no longer going to be increasing, so at this point for round 5, we just want to make 1 double crochet into every stitch. So we'll start with the first stitch, which is the one right here. And then we'll just continue with 1 double crochet into every stitch, and if you're counting along, you will have a total of 40 stitches. And we're including this chain 3 as a stitch, so we're counting that as one of our 40 stitches. Now once we've made it to the end of round 5, we just want to take extra caution again that we're making our last stitch into the stitch that's right here, okay? We want to make sure that we're not working into this one here, because if we do so, then we're going to be adding an extra stitch. And one way that you can really avoid that is to make sure you're counting every stitch as you go along. So we should have a total of 40 at the end of this round. And we're going to join with a slip stitch to that third chain, just like we've been doing. Round 6 is going to be exactly the same as round 5. We want to chain 3, and we need to make 1 double crochet into every stitch. Again, you want to count your stitches as you go, or at the end of the round. We'll have a total of 40 stitches at the end of this round, including our chain 3 from the very beginning. At the end of round 6, we just want to join with a slip stitch to finish off this round. And now round number 7 is going to start our pattern. So actually when we repeat, or when I mention to repeat, we're actually going to be repeating round 6, which is the one we just finished, and 7. So we're actually getting to the second round of our pattern repeat. So for round 7, we need to chain 4. And this chaining of 4, 3 of those chains are counting as a double crochet, and then 1 chain is going to count as a chain. And that's because for this round we're going to have a double crochet, and then we're going to skip a stitch, and then a double crochet, and we're going to skip a stitch. So we've got our first double crochet here. In order to skip a stitch without actually decreasing the size, we have to have that extra chain. So that's where that fourth chain comes into play. We've got our first stitch here, we're going to skip, and we're going to double crochet into the second stitch. And we want to chain one. We'll skip the next stitch here and work into this one. Do a double crochet and chain one. Skip a stitch, double crochet into the next, and we're simply going to repeat this pattern all the way around. Once you've made it to the end of round 7, it should look something like this, to where we have our double crochet in the second to last stitch, and we want to chain one, which I've already done. We're skipping this stitch, and then we're going to slip stitch into the third chain. So we've got our first chain, second chain, and third. We want to slip stitch into that third chain to finish off the round. And that way we'll maintain our pattern of having a double crochet and a space and a double crochet, and then we've maintained that all the way around. So we've got the double crochet in the space right here next to the last stitch. Moving on to round 8, we're going to chain 3. And we want to have one double crochet into every stitch, but it's going to look a little bit different since we have these chains. What we want to do when we have a chain space is we're just going to double crochet into the space. So you don't actually have to go into the chain. That's kind of a little difficult to do. You can just insert your hook directly into that space and make your double crochet. And then you'll work your next double crochet into the stitch, so into the post. You can see the V there at the top, and you'll just repeat that. So then we've got chain space, just work directly into the space, and we will keep going. Now at the end of round 8, we want to have our last double crochet into that last chain space, and then we'll join with a slip stitch to the third chain. And I mentioned before that that is our pattern repeat. We have a solid round of double crochet, and then we have a round where we have a space in between every double crochet. And what we want to do is repeat the last 2 rounds a total of 3 more times. So an easy way to kind of look at this visually, we're going to have 4 rounds, including this one, where we have a double crochet and a space and a double crochet. So just to go through this round one more time, we want to start off with 4 chains. We'll skip the first double crochet and we'll work into the next. Chain 1, skip a stitch, and double crochet into the next. chain 1, skip a stitch, and double crochet, and we'll just repeat. Now at the end of this round, we just want to join with a slip stitch to the 3rd chain. And then what I want you to do at this point is just finish up the repeat. So that way we have 4 total repeats, where we have round 7 and round 8, 7 and 8, and all the way up. And like I said, an easy visual cue is to see that we have 4 rounds where we've skipped the stitch there. Okay, so go ahead and finish that, and we'll meet back up and we'll talk about how to finish off our jar cozies. Okay, so what I've done off camera is I have finished all the way up through rounds 14. As you can see, I've got 4 pattern repeats, and we just have 2 rounds remaining to finish up our jar cozies. Now round 15, we are going to make 3 chains to start off the round, and we just want to double crochet 1 time into every stitch. Now at the end of round 15, we'll just join with a slip stitch. And at this point, we just have 1 round remaining, and here is where we're going to change hook. So up until this point, you should have been using your 5mm hook. Go ahead and start using your 4.5mm hook. And the reason why we're doing this is because we want our last round to be a little bit tighter, so that the cozy actually conforms to the shape of the mason jar. So round 16 is the same essentially as round 15. We're going to start off with 3 chains, and we're going to make 1 double crochet into every stitch. So of course the only difference here is that we're changing hooks. At the end of the final round, again, we're just going to join with a slip stitch to that 3rd chain, and we can go ahead and bind off. Go ahead and grab your darning needle, and we'll just weave in this tail. And I like to do so on the inside of the cozy. Now go ahead and grab your mason jar, and we'll do the final step. So you want to go ahead and place your cozy onto your mason jar. And there's one last thing I like to do. Now you can leave it as is, but the thing that I like to do is I like to weave in one strand of just the remaining yarn and sort of create a drawstring closure, if you will. It's really just a way to keep the cozy from sagging down and really just to give it a cleaner look. However, you don't have to do this step. I'm going to demonstrate it just in case you want to. So we just want to start from the back of the cozy, and you'll want to get a piece of yarn that is long enough to wrap around the cozy and then have some room to tie it off. So then just thread that on your darning needle, and then just start off next to your chain 3. So there's my chain 3 from where I joined the round. I'm just going to go underneath that next stitch and out the other side, and then I'm going to skip the next one and then come back out the other side, and then we'll just work in that way all the way around. So you want to leave yourself a little room to tie it off and just continue to weave in and out of the double crochet post on the very last round. And you could actually do this in a different color and it would probably look pretty cool, or if you wanted to use a piece of ribbon, that would look really nice as well. Have a little bit of contrast. Okay, so once you've made it all the way around, then what I did was just sort of pulled that pretty tight. That way I've just closed off any gaps. There we go. And I'm just going to tie this in a bow. Now, when I made my other ones, I actually left this tie towards the back because I'm not actually using this as a design element. It's more of a practicality sort of thing. However, like I said, if you use maybe a different color yarn or a piece of ribbon or even the same color yarn, you can keep the bow at the front. That way, you know, it just adds another design element. However, I'm just going to leave mine in the back. And so that's the end of this tutorial. This project has been really quite simple, and there's a couple different things that you can do with this now from this point. What I would recommend is take a look at the link in the description below this video, and you can see how I have used this mason jar cozy throughout my house. I've used it in 2 different ways, and I think you'll probably like each way, and so you'll want to take a look at that link. This concludes our video tutorial on the crocheted mason jar cozy. Stay tuned for more free patterns and video tutorials at BHookedCrochet.com.